The battlefield was a nightmare of smoke and fire. Explosions ripped through the air, and the guttural war cries of the opposing forces echoed across the blood-soaked plains of Varren. Captain Jason Merrick, a seasoned human soldier on loan to the Alien Coalition, led a desperate charge against the marauder forces that had breached the city's outer defences. His goal was simple: protect King Zorak, the ruthless ruler of Arlon, from the relentless assault. Jason's rifle hummed as he fired bursts of plasma into the enemy ranks. His squad followed closely, their formation tight despite the chaos. The marauders were ferocious, their spiked armour and energy weapons making them a fearsome foe. But Jason's years of experience gave him an edge. Reaching the palace's grand hall, Jason found Zorak cornered by a group of marauders. The Alien King, towering and clad in ornate battle armour, fought fiercely, but was clearly outnumbered. Without hesitation, Jason dove into the fray, his plasma blade humming to life as he cut through the marauders with precision and speed. In moments, the attackers lay defeated. Zorak, panting and bloodied, looked at Jason with an expression that was equal parts surprise and disdain. "You saved my life, human," the king said, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "Just doing my job," Jason replied, his tone steady. Zorak's lips twisted into a smirk. "You've earned more than my thanks. You will be rewarded." Before Jason could respond, the sound of retreating marauder ships filled the air. The battle was over, and Varren had been saved, thanks in no small part to the human soldier who had risked everything. The next day, Jason stood in the opulent throne room of Zorak's palace. The walls gleamed with crystalline mosaics depicting Varron's conquests, and the air was heavy with the scent of alien incense. Jason felt out of place in his battered combat gear, but he stood tall as Zorak addressed him. "You have proven yourself a warrior of great honour," Zorak began, his voice carrying across the hall, "and as such you shall receive a reward befitting your valour." Jason inclined his head, unsure of what to expect. The coalition contracts didn't usually come with lavish bonuses, but then Zorak was no ordinary employer. "Bring her forward," Zorak commanded. From the shadows a figure stepped into the light. She was tall and slender, her green-tinged skin marked by intricate patterns unique to her species. Her features, while regal, were unconventional by human standards, her ridged forehead and elongated facial structure lending her an otherworldly appearance. She moved with quiet grace, but her lowered gaze and folded hands spoke of a life lived in submission. "This," Zorak declared, gesturing to the woman, "is Mia, my wife. She is yours now." Jason's jaw tightened, his mind reeling. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "this isn't necessary. I didn't save you for a reward." "Nonsense," Zorak replied, waving a dismissive hand. "A warrior deserves a prize. She will serve you well." Mia lifted her gaze slightly, her large, mournful eyes meeting Jason's. There was no defiance there, only quiet resignation. Jason's instinct screamed against accepting her, as if she were some kind of trophy. But he knew refusing outright could insult the king, a dangerous prospect in a court where loyalty was enforced with brutality. "I'll ensure she's treated with respect," Jason said finally, his tone measured. Zorak's smirk returned. "Do as you wish, human. She is no longer my concern." As Mia stepped closer to Jason, he felt a pang of empathy for the woman. Whatever her life had been, it was clear she had endured much under Zorak's rule. He resolved then and there to treat her not as a prize, but as a person deserving dignity and freedom. "Come with me," Jason said softly, his tone gentle. Mia nodded, her movements hesitant but purposeful. As they left the throne room together, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected reward was about to change his life in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. Jason led Mia through the sprawling corridors of Zorak's palace, his mind racing. The alien woman moved silently beside him, her demeanor reserved, but her posture impossibly elegant. Her presence was both disarming and intriguing. When they reached his quarters, Jason motioned for her to take a seat, though she hesitated, clearly unaccustomed to such consideration. "You don't have to stand," Jason said, his voice kind. "Here, you're not a servant or a possession." Mia regarded him with cautious curiosity before finally sitting on the edge of the chair. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic tone that Jason hadn't noticed before. "Why did Zorak give you to me?" Jason asked, not unkindly. He wanted to understand the dynamics of the strange situation he now found himself in. Maya's gaze lowered. "I was an inconvenience," she admitted. "The king saw me as a symbol of obligation, not love. To him, my appearance made me unworthy of his court. I was tolerated, not valued." Jason's jaw tightened. He had seen many injustices during his time in service, but something about Mia's quiet acceptance of her fate stirred his protective instincts. "You deserve better," he said firmly. "No one has the right to treat you like that." Maya's eyes met his, a flicker of hope shining through her reserved expression. "Why would you say that? You don't even know me." "Because no one deserves to be discarded like they're nothing," Jason replied, "and I'm not going to let that happen to you again." For the first time, a faint smile touched Mia's lips, fleeting but genuine. Jason felt a warmth in his chest, a resolve to give her the respect and dignity she deserved. The days that followed were a period of adjustment for both Jason and Mia. He ensured she had a room of her own within the Coalition enclave, far removed from the opulence and oppression of Zorak's palace. She began to find small ways to integrate herself into the human camp, her quiet grace earning the respect of the soldiers. But it wasn't until an unexpected skirmish that Jason saw a side of Mia he hadn't anticipated. A group of rogue mercenaries loyal to Zorak's court attacked the Coalition enclave, seeking to destabilize Jason's position and undermine his growing influence. The attack was sudden and chaotic, forcing Jason and his team to scramble into defensive positions. "Maya, stay inside," Jason ordered as he armed himself and prepared to lead the counterattack. But as the battle raged, Maya emerged from the safety of the barracks, her movements deliberate. Jason spotted her just as she approached a wounded soldier, her hands glowing faintly with an iridescent light. "What are you doing?" he shouted, rushing to her side. "Helping," she replied calmly, placing her hands on the soldier's injuries. The glow intensified, and to Jason's astonishment, the wounds began to close. The soldier gasped, his pain easing as Mia's healing touch worked its magic. Jason stared at her, awestruck. "You can heal people?" Mia nodded, though she seemed almost reluctant to speak of it. "It's a skill I rarely used in Zorak's court. He saw it as a curiosity, not a gift." "Well, I see it as a game changer," Jason said, his admiration evident. "You're more than just someone who needs protection, Mia. You're extraordinary." The skirmish ended in victory for the Coalition, and Mia's abilities became a subject of quiet reverence among the soldiers. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not as a burden or a possession, but as someone valuable. Later that evening, as the camp settled into an uneasy calm, Jason found Mia sitting alone under the stars. He joined her, his presence unassuming but comforting. "You didn't have to help today," he said. "But you did. Why?" Mia looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Because you've shown me what it means to be cared for, Jason. It felt right to do the same." Jason smiled, his respect for her deepening. "Then we'll keep looking out for each other. Deal?" Mia extended her hand, her smile tentative but warm. "Deal." In that moment, their connection solidified, a partnership built on mutual trust and the promise of something greater. Neither of them could have predicted the challenges ahead, but together they knew they could face whatever the future held. Weeks passed, and Mia became an integral part of the Coalition enclave. Her healing abilities not only saved lives, but also boosted morale among the soldiers, who regarded her with a mix of gratitude and awe. Maya, once discarded by Zorak, was finally finding her place, and it was alongside the human who had refused to see her as anything less than extraordinary. Jason watched her from a distance as she worked, tending to the wounded with a calm focus that belied her inner strength. He admired her grace, but it was her resilience that truly captivated him. Mia had endured so much, yet she stood taller with each passing day. One evening, after another long day, Jason approached her in the makeshift medical tent. "You're incredible, you know that," he said, leaning against the entrance. Mia turned, her expression softening. "You give me too much credit, Jason. I'm just doing what I can." "Don't sell yourself short," he replied, stepping closer. "You've done more for these people than anyone could have asked for." She smiled faintly, her luminous eyes meeting his. "And what about you? You've done so much for me. Why?" Jason hesitated, his usual confidence faltering under her gaze. "Because I see someone worth fighting for, someone who deserves more than what life's thrown at her." Mia's breath hitched slightly, her expression unreadable. Before she could respond, an alert blared through the camp. The marauders had returned. This time, their forces were larger and more organized than before. Jason quickly mobilized his team, preparing for the imminent attack. Mia insisted on staying at the front lines, her healing abilities critical to their survival. As the battle raged, Jason fought fiercely, keeping an eye on Mia as she moved through the chaos, her glowing hands bringing soldiers back from the brink. She was fearless, a beacon of hope in the midst of destruction. But the marauders were relentless. As Jason covered Mia, he noticed a group of enemy soldiers flanking her position. Without hesitation, he charged toward them, his rifle blazing. "Get down!" he shouted as he took out two of the attackers. The third lunged at him, and the two grappled in the mud. Maya watched in horror as Jason was thrown to the ground, the marauder raising its blade to strike. In a flash, Maya stepped forward, her hands glowing brighter than ever. With a cry of determination, she released a wave of energy that sent the marauder flying. Jason scrambled to his feet, staring at her in astonishment. "I told you I can protect myself," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Jason grinned, wiping blood from his lip. "Remind me never to doubt you again." The battle ended in a hard-won victory for the coalition, but tensions within the camp remained high. Rumours of a traitor aiding the marauders began to circulate, and suspicion fell on Mia. Though her contributions were undeniable, some soldiers couldn't look past her connection to Zorak. Jason confronted Commander Bryce after overhearing the accusations. "This is insane," he said, his voice rising. "Mia saved more lives here than anyone else. She's not a traitor." Bryce's expression was grim. "I want to believe that, Jason, but her past makes people nervous, and we can't afford to ignore the possibility." Jason's fists clenched, his frustration mounting. "You don't know her like I do. She's not working with the marauders." "Then prove it," Bryce said, his tone unyielding. "Find the real traitor before this spirals out of control." Determined to clear Mia's name, Jason began investigating the camp, questioning soldiers and analyzing security logs. Maya, sensing his unease, approached him one night. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice gentle. Jason hesitated before explaining the situation. "Some people think you're working with the marauders. They're wrong, but I need to prove it." Mia's expression hardened, a rare display of anger. "After everything I've done, they still see me as his wife, as a symbol of Zorak's cruelty?" Jason reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Not everyone, not me. We'll prove them wrong." Together, they uncovered evidence pointing to a coalition officer who had been leaking information to the marauders in exchange for personal gain. Confronting the traitor, Jason and Mia exposed the plot, earning her the trust of even her harshest critics. That night, as the camp celebrated their victory, Mia and Jason stood apart from the others, gazing at the stars. "You've done so much for me," Mia said, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Jason turned to her, his expression soft. "You don't owe me anything, Mia. You've already given more than you realize." For a moment, they simply stood there, the bond between them unspoken, but undeniable. In the stillness of the night, they both realized that what had begun as an unexpected alliance was becoming something far deeper, something worth fighting for. Mia's triumph in exposing the traitor earned her respect across the coalition camp, but it also drew unwanted attention. Word of her newfound influence and abilities spread, reaching the ears of Zorak. The Tyrant King, furious that his discarded wife was thriving without him, sent an envoy to the coalition with an ultimatum: return Maya to his court or face the wrath of his armies. The message was delivered during a tense council meeting. The coalition leaders debated Zorak's demand, weighing the risks of defying him. Commander Bryce turned to Mia, his tone grave. "What do you want to do?" Maya's voice was calm but resolute. "I will not return to him. I will not be his pawn." Jason, seated beside her, nodded in agreement. "She's made her choice, and we stand by it." Bryce hesitated, then sighed. "Defying Zorak will bring war to our doorstep." "Then we'll fight," Jason said firmly. "We didn't come this far just to hand her back." The council eventually sided with Maya, though tensions remained high. That evening, Jason found her standing on the outskirts of the camp, gazing at the horizon. "You didn't flinch in there," he said, walking up beside her. "You could have avoided all this by agreeing to go back." Mia shook her head, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars. "I've lived my life in Zorak's shadow. He used me to solidify his power, to project control, but I'm more than that now, thanks to you." Jason smiled, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "You're not just surviving, Mia. You're leading." Zorak's response was swift and brutal. Within days, his forces surrounded the coalition camp, cutting off supply lines and bombarding their defences with relentless precision. The coalition soldiers held the line, but morale wavered under the weight of the siege. In the command tent, Jason and Mira stood over a holographic map of the battlefield, strategizing with Commander Bryce. "We can't outlast them," Bryce said bluntly. "If we don't find a way to break the siege, we're finished." Mira studied the map, her mind racing. "Zorak's forces rely on centralized command. If we can disrupt his communications, it will create enough confusion for us to strike back." Jason pointed to a heavily guarded tower at the edge of the enemy encampment. "That's our target. Take out their relay station and the rest of their operation falls apart." Bryce frowned. "It's a suicide mission." Jason shrugged. "Good thing I've got a habit of surviving those." Mia stepped forward. "I'm going with you." Jason turned to her, his brow furrowing. "Mia—" She cut him off, her voice firm. "I'm not staying behind while others risk their lives for my freedom. This is my fight too." Jason hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but we do this together." Under the cover of darkness, Jason, Mira, and a small team infiltrated Zorak's camp. The tension was palpable as they navigated through enemy lines, avoiding patrols and disabling traps. Myra's bioluminescent glow was carefully concealed, but her presence radiated a quiet strength that bolstered the team's resolve. As they approached the relay station, the group encountered heavy resistance. Jason fought with precision, his rifle blazing, as Mira used her energy to disable enemy combatants and heal injured teammates. Their synergy was seamless, a testament to the bond they had forged. Reaching the tower's control room, Mira accessed the alien interface, her fingers flying over the console. "I'm disabling their network," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. Jason held the door, firing at the waves of reinforcements trying to breach their position. "Make it quick, Mia. We've got company." With a final keystroke, Mira shut down the communications relay. The tower systems powered down, and the enemy forces outside faltered, their coordination disrupted. "Done!" Mia shouted, joining Jason at the door. "Let's get out of here." The team retreated under heavy fire, but the disruption in Zorak's forces gave them the edge they needed. Back at the Coalition camp, the soldiers launched a counter-offensive, exploiting the enemy's disarray. The tide of battle turned, and Zorak's forces began to crumble. As the Coalition celebrated their victory, Mira and Jason stood together, exhaustion etched on their faces. "You did it," Jason said, his admiration evident. "We did it," Mira corrected, her gaze steady. "Because you believed in me." Jason smiled, his voice warm. "Always." Their connection, forged in fire and tested in battle, was stronger than ever. Together, they had defied a tyrant and proven that even the most unexpected alliances could change the course of history. The Coalition's counter-offensive left Zorak's forces in disarray. His once mighty army had fractured, retreating into isolated camps. The Tyrant King, cornered and desperate, withdrew to his fortress, a heavily guarded bastion surrounded by impenetrable mountains and dense energy fields. Jason and Mira stood with Commander Bryce in the Coalition Command Center, a holographic map of Zorak's fortress glowing before them. "This is it," Bryce said grimly. "We have them on the run, but he's still dangerous." Jason studied the map, his expression resolute. "We can't let him regroup. If we don't end this now, he'll come back stronger." Mia stepped forward, her luminous eyes filled with determination. "I know how to disable the energy fields protecting his fortress. Zorak built them with technology I helped develop. I can undo it." Bryce frowned. "It's too risky. If he captures you—" "He won't," Jason interjected, "because I'll be there to make sure of it." The plan was set. A small strike team led by Jason and Mira would infiltrate the fortress while the main Coalition forces engaged Zorak's remaining army. Their objective: confront Zorak and end his reign once and for all. The infiltration team navigated the treacherous mountain pass under cover of darkness. Mira's knowledge of the fortress proved invaluable, guiding them through hidden paths and bypassing security measures. Jason stayed close to her, his protective instincts on high alert. As they reached the perimeter, Mira accessed a concealed control panel, her fingers moving deftly over the alien interface. "Almost there," she murmured, her voice steady despite the tension. Suddenly, alarms blared. The team had been discovered. "Get ready!" Jason shouted, raising his rifle as enemy guards poured out of the fortress. A fierce firefight erupted, the team holding their ground as Mira worked to disable the energy fields. "I just need a few more seconds," she yelled over the chaos. Jason's sharp aim kept the guards at bay, but the enemy numbers were overwhelming. Just as the situation seemed dire, Mira completed. The energy fields flickered and died, leaving the fortress vulnerable. "It's down," she cried. Jason grabbed her hand. "Then let's finish this." With the energy fields disabled, the Coalition forces launched their assault, breaching the fortress walls in a coordinated strike. Inside, Jason and Mira led the charge, navigating the labyrinthine corridors toward Zorak's throne room. The Tyrant King awaited them, his massive frame clad in ornate armor. His crimson eyes burned with fury as he rose from his throne, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You dare defy me!" Mira stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "Your reign of terror ends here, Zorak. Your people deserve better." Zorak sneered, his gaze shifting to Jason. "And you, human? You think you can stand against me? Jason leveled his rifle. I don't think. I know. The battle that followed was intense, Zorak's strength and cunning making him a formidable opponent. He wielded an energy blade with lethal precision, forcing Jason and Mira to fight with every ounce of skill they had. Jason's quick reflexes and Mira's bioluminescent powers proved to be a perfect combination. Their teamwork seamless. As the fight raged, Zorak managed to corner Mira, his blade poised to strike. Jason, battered but unyielding, intervened, blocking the blow with his own weapon. You don't get to hurt her, he growled, driving Zorak back. Mira seized the opportunity, channeling her energy into a focused blast that struck Zorak square in the chest. The tyrant staggered, his armor cracking under the force. Jason followed up with a precise strike, disarming him and forcing him to his knees. It's over, Mira said, her voice firm. Zorak glared at her, his arrogance undiminished. You think this changes anything? You are nothing without me? Mira met his gaze, unflinching. I am everything without you. The coalition forces secured the fortress, capturing Zorak and his remaining loyalists. The Tyrant King's reign was over, and the people of Varon celebrated their newfound freedom. In the aftermath, Jason and Mira stood on the fortress balcony, overlooking the liberated city. The sky was alight with fireworks, the joy of the people palpable. You did it, Jason said, his voice filled with pride. We did it, Mira corrected, turning to him, because you believed in me. Jason smiled, his expression soft. I'll always believe in you, Mira. Their journey had been one of struggle and triumph, forging a bond stronger than either had imagined. As they stood together, watching the dawn of a new era, they knew that their partnership was just the beginning of a brighter future, one they would face together, side by side.